Hello there. How's it going this evening? I'm, yeah, happy Friday. If it's still Friday where you are, otherwise, happy Saturday. Um, yeah, the weather was actually clear tonight. It might have been kind of clear yesterday, but I didn't end up doing a live stream. Um, but it's supposedly going to be clear tomorrow night too, so I might actually be able to do a back-to-back live stream. Um, Hey, Wiley Sight. Well, yeah, long time no speak. Good evening, Dark Shades. How are you doing tonight? Thanks for joining. Um, yeah, I had done the last live streams I think at 8:30. I ended up moving this one back up 15 minutes because I wanted to have a little bit more time to kind of test out some of the new code. Um, before the stream started, so I wouldn't fumble around quite as much. Um, but yeah, so there's not going to be a ton of new stuff to demo, so it's mostly hopefully going to be focused on observing. I'm probably gonna while I'm imaging some targets, we might talk about some astronomy news and some other things I that have kind of come up in the last few days. And yeah, so I went ahead and got things going already. Let me switch. So it actually, I don't know, maybe it's just my imagination, but I feel like I can see more stars tonight. So maybe the transparency and is a little bit better than usual. Um, so this requires a bit of an explanation. Uh, this one is just kind of live view on one of the telescopes. Oh, that's interesting. This one, uh, so there's a new mosaic mode on the Seestars, and I'm not currently running it. It's got some trade-offs, we'll say, but I'm not currently running it because it requires you to be on a later version of the app and firmware later than what I'm running. I'm still running like the one dot whatever release of the app, whereas it was the um, the 2.0 or later version of the app that has added mosaic mode. But it turns out there was a mosaic mode built in. I think they were testing it out internally, and it's actually kind of been there all along. It's called what was it? Oh, it's under settings and stack mosaic. Although it wasn't actually called mosaic, it was like there was a typo in it internally. But because uh, Wiley Sight and I were trying to help someone who was using Seestar Alp, and they were having some weird results. And because the setting had accidentally got turned on somehow with their telescope, and they were running, I guess, the old version. And one thing I noticed is that live view didn't work at all. And so as part of that, I fixed live view because I think it would live view would have had the same problem on the latest version or on the new mosaic mode, because the code makes assumptions that the photo is always the same size when it's stacking, which is true when it with the normal photos you take, but in the case of mosaic, it's bigger, and so I fixed that, and just for fun, I kept it on one of my telescopes, that old mosaic mode, the internal Seestar mosaic mode. And so you can kind of see this is Altair here, and it's been for some reason it's had a high reject drop frame rate, and I think it's this particular telescope. Like there was the mount itself, I think like a screw came loose on it, and I tightened it up, but I didn't have my screwdriver, so I think it's a little wobbly. Because I kind of um, got it level, but now it's kind of gone out of level. So that might be part of the problem. But you can kind of see how it's like each one of these, like this rectangle here is the size of a standard frame. So it's about 50%. It's exactly 50% larger than a normal Seestar image, both in the, both width and height. And yeah, so it was just kind of an experiment to turn that on. And like I say, at some point I'm probably going to update one of these to the latest version, and so I can test out live view, the new live view with, or the new mosaic mode with the live view to make sure it still works. But at least with this live view, with this mosaic mode, it works. But yeah, this is just Altair that it's kind of stacking. So yeah. And there have been a few changes I've made to the live view. Now actually I can start imaging from here. I've kind of got to work on the responsiveness. It's not completely responsive, but I guess it didn't 3-point calibrate it didn't do the horizontal calibration the last time, I guess, so it's doing it again. While it's doing this, one thing that was added, if you're using this Seestar Alp software, one thing that was added by Wiley Site recently that's really that I like, and I used it tonight, is this new go-to mode where you type in, like I just typed in, earlier tonight I typed in, helps if I spell it correctly, Altair, and I did a search, and then I just hit submit, and it just kind of went to the target. And I'm not going to do it now because it's doing the 3-point alignment or the horizontal calibration. So this is actually kind of interesting. I'm just looking at the time. It's kind of interesting because you'll see it start building up the image around the edges. You can't see it right now, but as it basically is kind of moving the telescope and then taking images, and you'll start seeing it filling in some of these gaps as it goes. Yes. So, hello, Piper Floyd. Good evening. Yeah. The problem is it's still kind of an experimental feature. It's a little flaky, and so it's kind of feature flagged. So if you go into an editor and you look at the config.toml file, you have to turn on this experimental mode right here. Experimental is true under the web UI settings. Otherwise, it won't enable the tab. Now, the problem is if you're already imaging it, it's not a dynamic setting, so you have to restart it. But I wouldn't do it if I was imaging at that moment, because it could, like, the Seestar will keep imaging, but the schedule inside SSC and the Seestar Alp software goes away when you restart the program. So I'd wait until it was over, done with like that specific target, and then I'd restart it with that flag, and then you'll get the live view tab. Hi Dave. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining tonight. And yeah, no problem. But yeah, wait until the stack is done, and then do it, and then you'll have it. But like I say, it's useful, but it can also be unstable at times, which is why I still have it kind of under flagged as experimental. And you won't see exactly what you're seeing here on the screen because I haven't committed this. This is like my own version of it that I've been kind of experimenting around with it. Specifically live view. I mean, like the go-to functionality, I believe, is on the main branch. So, So yeah, that's just my peculiar version is some of the live view changes. Okay. Is it wow. 11 drop frames and no stacked frames. What in the world is this doing? It might be in that mode where it's just like trying to find the target. It's failing. Um, it's interesting because it wasn't particularly windy out there, so I don't think it's that. I think it's just some kind of calibration issue. Yeah, yeah. Thanks, appreciate it. Yeah, I mean it's we were talking about that on Discord about how much progress like there's been in the last 3 months, like five or six over 500 commits to the project. Um, so I mean, some are small, some are large, but basically, yeah, there's like something either being added or fixed or enhanced almost every day on the code. It's pretty impressive. It's been moving very quickly. Um, but yeah, this is not doing well. So I might have to stop this one. Let's see. Let me go back to live view. Oh, it actually got a frame, a whole frame. So hopefully it'll start showing up in this on the screen shortly. Yeah. I'm looking at the logs off screen here. It's yeah, it's and again, one of the things I want to do is kind of get away from having to look at the logs, but that's a future enhancement. All I did is I just and it's up to 4 frames, and why isn't it showing? Um, One thing I did do to try to improve things, because sometimes it gets in this mode. I oh see, well, what doesn't help is I'm not only do I have local changes. Oh, interesting. Not only do I have local changes, but the not only do I have local changes, but I'm also on a branch of some new enhancements that Kai has been building, the creator of the project. So I'm kind of, it's like experimental on top of a branch. Um, yeah, see, I think this is, I think this is something that was fixed recently. Um, that isn't fixed in my branch. Let me see. Let me see if if it gets me back. Okay. I may have to just stop and restart this. Again, it's experimental. And then we can get back to pointing at some targets here shortly. And there was actually some astronomy related news I wanted to kind of discuss tonight as well, but we'll get to that once I've got this actively imaging something. Okay, so that looks okay. And this is up to 27 frames. Now this is, so I've made some local changes, and I think I've made live view less stable, and I think it's even worse when I run it on 2 telescopes. Okay, it finally loaded, but I noticed some instability that other people weren't seeing, and I don't think it was multiple telescopes. I think it's the changes I made that were supposedly going to improve things. One thing that isn't on the released version is I added kind of a right ascension and declination, kind of the coordinates of where the telescope thinks it's pointing in the sky. And this does update. Like on the mosaic, I believe you'll see it kind of changing as it point. Yeah, see, you can see this number slightly changed because it's slowly kind of moving and taking photos. I think that's why. No, that one's moving a little bit too. But anywho, so the no, that's fine. So this how are you running SSC? Are you are you running it on Windows? Are you running it on Mac? Because by default it will put the logs in some log files, but it won't print to wherever you started it from. But another setting that I personally always change is undo. Okay. Oops, stop it. I think the problem was what I end up doing is I go log to standard out. I mean, you don't have to do it. It ends up generating these log files where it has all the information. So that would be, I'd look at the .log. The ones that are numbered are older logs, so I would look at .log. That should be the current one, and you can see what's going on. Like this was from, I mean, this is UTC time, so that's current. So yeah, I would just look at that, or you can change that setting that I mentioned where I change log to standard out, and then wherever you run it from, if you're running it from the command line, you can see the logs there. Otherwise, it doesn't log much to standard out, but it will be logging to the file. Let me not install that right now. Okay, so let us figure out what we're looking at first. I was trying to catch up on my Messier objects, and I think I'm all caught up. Because a lot of them I just can't see. Come on. A lot of them I just can't see from my backyard. I'm just skimming this to see if there was anything new that might be visible, but I don't think there is. Things that I either have already taken photos of or that aren't currently visible from my backyard because of this horrible skyline. So the good thing is now Triangulum, I'll do Triangulum in a little bit. Maybe in a little over an hour from now, I can start doing Triangulum because it'll be not behind the house anymore. Actually, what would be fun, I shouldn't say fun, what'll be interesting, let me go ahead and point this one over here, the pseudo mosaic, just to do something fun. Unfortunately, I don't have a good way to stop the stacking mode currently. But what I can do, so this is where I was showing like the go-to mode. Like you can always go to the imaging tab here, pick what you want, and then hit go and it'll start imaging. But I'm just going to kind of do it manually. So I'm going to look up, it's not Andromeda, that's the entire constellation. Let me look up M31, and here are the coordinates. And then I'm going to just go there, and then I can go to live view, and it should update. Yeah, so it's updating. It's trying to go to yeah, so Windows 11. Yeah, I would just look at the log files, or I would yeah, or change that setting to log to standard out. Hey Jose, things are fine. I just got started a little bit ago. Thanks for joining the stream. Just kind of testing out some new functionality, but trying not to do as much live coding tonight. Um, but I will kind of go over some new things. Like that go-to mode is new, or not mode, go-to screen is new. And one thing that was added, uh, it's not visible in the user interface yet, but Wiley Site is working on it. Um, there were some changes made by Kai, who created the Seestar Alp project. He added some new functionality that kind of adds a new, he calls it federated scheduler, where if you have more than one Seestar, it has the ability to schedule things across both Seestars. So if you go ahead and create a mosaic like for M31, the Andromeda Galaxy, and it's like you wouldn't make it this small, but if it was a 2x2 mosaic, so 4 panels, it will actually divide up the panels between the two telescopes, which is pretty cool. So here you can see I didn't actually start imaging this yet. I just said go to M31. So again, this is a feature that I added that isn't in the released version yet, but I hope to. It seems to be working reasonably well. There's some minor adjustments I want to make to it, and I'll probably make them tomorrow, and then I'll merge this in so live view will be more featureful. You like I'm not going to do it right this moment, and this slider doesn't do anything. It's not going to be a slider, but the autofocus button, this button actually does trigger an autofocus. Oh, the 3-point alignment is going to totally fail because that's a building. Like it tried to 3-point align into a building. So that's not going to work. And you can kind of see, yeah, it goes left and right when it's doing the 3-point alignment. It was pointed at the Andromeda Galaxy. It's probably like looking at this building here now. So that's not going to work. But it'll fail and it'll go back to the target. So it was... The only problem with having 2 telescopes is you have twice as much logs and it's sometimes hard to tell. But ideally it's just going to fail and it'll go back to M31 and it'll start imaging. Yeah, it failed because it's no longer trying to do the 3-point the 3-point polar alignment, which is the horizontal calibration. Okay, it got a successful stack frame. Now remember, this right telescope is in the old hidden mosaic mode that is internal to the Seestar, not the real not the mosaic mode that's built into Seestar Alp, and not the mosaic mode that's in the new version of the app, of the Seestar, the official app. Yeah. Well, and honestly, like I've done this on previous live streams. I've kind of used our as in the Seestar Alp or SSE mosaic mode. This one, I've used this mode, and for simple mosaics, I had it kind of both telescopes open and like looking at it side by side. But it would be, I mean, we're not there yet, but it would be nice with our mosaic mode to be able to kind of dynamically combine it on the fly. Okay. Is this in a mosaic mode? I thought it was. Oh, that's why. Yeah, the biggest problem with live view at this moment is if you were looking at a target and it was in preview mode and then you start stacking, it stays in preview mode. So this isn't actually the stacked view, which is kind of not clear, but let me show you if I restart this. Takes a couple of seconds for it to stop itself. Let me go look at the chat. Hello, Faizan. Good evening. Thanks for joining. When you say I'm trying to control the Seestar remotely, how remotely, and what do you mean by that? Because there's a few different that could mean several different things, and of some of them are easier than others. So how specifically do you want to remote control it? Are you talking about completely remote, completely hands off, or or would you have somebody who'd be able to turn it on? Like, because typically that's one of the biggest problems is being able to turn it on. Let me see. Sorry, I'm just looking at the logs to see if it's okay. This should actually load. This is looking weird, but okay. I need to stop this one and point this at something more constructive. And again, like I say, this is kind of weird the way I have to go to this other version of the live screen to actually be able to shut it off. Okay, so yeah, you can start seeing the old hidden internal mosaic mode for the Seestar. I just thought I'd keep it on tonight just because, well, I'll probably turn it off at some point, but for now I'm keeping it on just so you can see what it looks like. It does generate a lot of artifacts, unfortunately. Let me see. Okay. So, what? And you'll have to pardon me because one of the issues I've had the last live stream is the chat kept freezing up on me. Like the YouTube console was showing fine, but then like the chat would just kind of get behind. So I'm going to try to be more diligent tonight about manually reloading it so I don't fall behind. Let me look at my list here. Let us see. Okay. I may take another crack at Pluto tonight, just because I'm trying to capture enough images over a number of nights to try to animate the motion of it, just for fun. Why not? Actually, I want to see NGC 253. I want to see if I can even see that. I had, according to my notes, after 2:30. NGC 253 after 2 a.m. Not that I'm necessarily going to be going till 2 a.m. Okay, yeah, it's after 2 a.m. It's very briefly visible in my backyard, so I don't think I'll be doing that tonight. What else was there? Oh, hi, Tariq. It's been a while. How are you? No, Stevens, you got the name correct, Steven. Yeah, it's been a while. Sorry. Let us see. Okay, we've got this. Yeah, it's been a while. Yes, definitely a while. Okay. So I might do Pluto. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's I had a lot of cloudy weather here and other things going on my side, so I haven't actually probably had that many live streams since the last time you were on one of the live streams. Because I know I went like a week and a half, 2 weeks at one point, and then a week without another one. So I haven't had a ton of them because the weather just hasn't been cooperating. Or the nights it did cooperate, I was tired. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You need to go to sleep. It's it it's like super early. Like, oh yeah, it would be like 4 in the morning there or something. But yeah, thanks for dropping in. I appreciate it. Yeah, weather isn't in our hands, unfortunately, or fortunately, actually, because nobody would agree on what day it would rain, and it would never rain as a result. Maybe. Um, oh, 6:20 a.m. Wow. Yeah. Well, thanks for dropping in. Get some sleep, or some sleep at this point. But that's cool. Yeah. Good morning and good evening, I guess, or good night at the same time. Um. Okay. Wow. 6:20 a.m. And Helix isn't until later because I want to try to get the Helix Nebula because I keep having it on my list of things to image, but I haven't gotten around to it. And I only have kind of this narrow kind of window canyon between buildings that I can even view it. Um, so let's see. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I hope to see you again before too long. And thanks. So, and clear skies to you too. Um, let's see. Actually, there were some things over here that I thought about imaging because the conditions are actually not too bad tonight, and we probably will have kind of our first proper front coming through here, which tends to make the seeing a lot better. And like in a week, we might actually get a front through. So the conditions might actually, and it'll be good because then the moon will be more out of the way. So I might be able to actually do one of my really long live streams next weekend, hopefully. I was actually thinking of imaging some things down here tonight, or with this other telescope. One thing that's I don't think is quite right. You see the CPU load up here? It's almost like 100%, and I think it's the some of the problems some of the changes I made I think made it worse because it's actually I can actually hear the fan on my MacBook, and I almost never hear the fan on my MacBook, and that's kind of disconcerting. And the fact that this is, yeah, I might have to kill this because I think it's causing problems. And you should start seeing this blue line drop. Yeah. So one thing to note, remember well, if you've been on previous live streams recently, I had mentioned that the internet had gone down, but it was actually only on my laptop. That this green circle was actually just now yellow or orange. That meant the internet actually went down on my laptop, but I'm not streaming from my laptop. But can the Seestar detect clouds and reject like sharp cap? It, as far as I know, it purely goes off the number of stars because I've had it where there were some high clouds that like there were still some bright stars visible, or it wasn't completely covering the frame, and so it ended up stacking it anyway. So that's where it's helpful to go ahead and save all the frames and not just leave it up to the Seestar to stack, because you'll end up with these it'll end up stacking stuff a lot of times that it shouldn't have. Actually, let me pull this off screen. I wonder if it's because the internet glitched between or if if it was because the network glitched between my laptop and the telescopes, if that's why. it started eating up a lot of CPU, or if it's just some of the issues I'm having. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. No, I'm looking at the logs and it is having issues. Not the software per se, but like my network. Yeah, look at that. Why did it say I couldn't get the stats? But then it refreshed. So you can see it's filling in kind of this mosaic, but it does produce a lot of artifacts. I mean, the other day it was producing even worse artifacts because the moon was still up, and so there were gradients, and it was having problems. Yeah. Um, yeah, with post processing, you can have it ignore the bad frames, but the live stack does get fuzzy, and I have seen that where actually the live stack will get worse and worse because it's still stacking images that are kind of bad. So what's happened with me is like I had a target of interest in the middle of the frame, like some nebula, and there were stars all over the field of view. And as the telescope was like the object went behind a house, and um, it kept stacking the frames because there were stars still visible at the edge of the frame, but the target of interest was in the center of the frame, and so it just actually got dimmer and dimmer. Like it was adding photos to the stack, but it was getting worse. Like it had gotten better, and then when it started tracking against the building, it got worse, which was kind of not not ideal. Um, yeah, so that one was kind of but because I saved the individual frames, I can process it after the fact. It's just the thing that came out of the telescope wasn't great. And I've also had ones. I don't have the example handy, but clouds had come through, and I think they were like slow moving, and so around the edge of the photo, there were some obviously like white areas that looked like clouds, because I guess they were over the same part of the frame for long enough that they ended up getting stacked onto the frame, onto the what came out of the telescope. So what I want to do is I'm going to go to schedule. So one of the things about the new kind of unified scheduler is you'll be able to go into Mosaic, and it won't be for a specific telescope. Like if you have more than one telescope, you'll just be able to go to kind of this federated scheduler and just enter your Mosaic information and hit go, and it'll divide it up across the telescopes. Yeah, the moon. I It's not visible right now, but the other day, a few days ago, I was taking some images of it, and I saw a nice little time lapse someone had done with the Seestar of the lunar eclipse the other night. That was pretty cool. But I think it was either cloudy or partly cloudy here, or I think it might have been partly cloudy and it cleared up. By the time it cleared up, the moon wasn't like the eclipse was over. But I think next year there's going to be a nice lunar eclipse. That'll be cool. But yeah, I've definitely taken some photos of the. Let me see if I can pull them up without. If I can pull up any of the recent ones I did. Shared album. No, it's not shared album. Because some of it ends up going on like my Mac photo album. Here we are. How many photos do I have? Oh yeah, so let me see if I can hide this. Hold on a second. Let's see, how do I do this? No, actually, maybe I didn't take any photos recently of... Sorry, I'm like... Yeah, I think this was... Let me see. Yeah, I think this was an example of where it just started stacking some stuff and the image actually got fainter because it originally wasn't quite that faint. Yeah, I guess I didn't get any moon photos, but I do have a photo of the M31 that I did in this mosaic mode, and you can see how massive the artifacts were. Like it filled the frame, and it's a bigger frame than you could get with the Seestar by default. But like the artifacts were pretty severe. But to be fair, this was while the moon was up, so the artifacts were worse than usual. I mean, the gradients were worse than usual. Just trying to see if there's anything else of interest. No. Let me see. Nope. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, the moon does make a good target these days, or it can be. It looks pretty good on in the Seestar. Let me see if I can find. This one looks kind of funny. This was like from a month ago. It was starting to go behind a house, or so it looks kind of funny. Like this is just the phase of the moon, and this is because it was going behind a building. Yeah, so this is the the old hidden mosaic mode. Yeah. And this is M31. So it eventually ends up kind of building up the entire frame. And at some point you'll start seeing it kind of moving the telescope. But yeah, it's a bit rough, but to be fair, this wasn't meant to see the light of day for it was an internal hidden thing. Let's see. Yeah, here was this was a photo I took of the moon. It's not too bad. It's a little blurry because it's a digital zoom. But that was like a month ago. I was trying to see if I could see anything better that I had done recently. The one that I don't know if I ever showed it on stream, that I was pretty pleased with myself about is let me see, when did I take that photo? Yeah. Yeah, this was kind of interesting. I think this is the thinnest crescent moon I've ever taken a photo of. The sun hadn't set yet, and I think the moon was like 35 hours old, I think. So just a day and a half after the new moon. Because, yeah, I think the new moon was the previous morning and this was in the evening. But, yeah, so you can kind of see it was very thin. And I was actually really surprised because I plugged it in to the telescope and I had it like pointing out the window. So it was sitting kind of on the second floor of the house facing out the window. And I said, find the moon. And it kind of went. And then like actually, I don't know if it found it. I think it did kind of find it, but I had to stop it because like the contrast was so low. But I kept imaging it for a while. And that was on June 7th. Uh, I think let me look real quick because what I ended up doing was I took a photo with my phone to try to see how, like, I couldn't actually see the moon visually initially because it was so faint. Because it was, the sun was still up. It was being blocked by a building, but it was still still a lot of foreground, like bright sky. Um, Let me see, was it June 7th? Yeah, here we go. June 7th. Okay. Um, yeah, okay. So, sorry, I'm trying to, okay, here it is. Um, my screen's kind of dirty. But let me see. Yeah, so this was once it became a bit more visible. I took a photo over a neighbor's roof and I was able to see it. Like I had to stare at the area like I was looking over the Seestar while I was taking photos of it, trying to see the moon. But you could just barely, like you really had to know where it was pointing. And it was only because I saw it initially through the Seestar. Um, but yeah, and then yeah, yeah. So that was, let me see. Yeah, so that crescent, and then like 2 minutes later, this photo was taken, and this wasn't even the first one I had taken. So when I first started taking photos of the crescent, it was like I couldn't see it with my naked eye. Like I was looking for it because I'd been taking a photo of it for, yeah, it was around half an hour at that point. Let me see. Did I get it on this photo? Um, yeah, because like, let me see. Yeah, it was interesting because, sorry, I'm like looking at these photos, trying to, oops, figure out. Um, but yeah, you can see like, you can see. Wait, yeah, hold on. But yeah, you can see. Okay, here we go. So you can see how, like, this is another photo from that area, and I don't even know if I can see it in this one. And so this was just a few minutes before, and I was like struggling to even see it with my eye, and yet I'd been taking photos of it with the telescope. So now I have a new challenge. I want to try to get something like under 30 hours from new moon. Yeah, it was a nice little sliver there. But yeah, now I want to try to take a photo of an even younger new moon. I mean, even younger moon. Because it was, like I say, it was about 35 hours, I think, after the new moon. So, um, but and maybe with the skies being a little bit better here, coming up with cold fronts and stuff, maybe I'll be able to get an even younger moon. So we'll see. Um, yeah. So, so yeah. What was I? I got sidetracked now. I sidetracked myself. I'm self sidetracking. Um, yeah, the Dwarf 3. That's in, yeah, I haven't looked at the reviews of it. Um, let me kick off something, and then I want to talk about something that I thought that I'd run across recently. Um, well, I mean it's nothing novel, but dear, maybe I'll go ahead and do. Let me go ahead and do the. I'm switching off because I've got like everything's in a weird state. I'm gonna do the. I'm gonna do the Deer Lake group and Stevens quintet again because I kind of like that target. And this is interesting. Why did it not? Why did it not load the target or load the file I had? Is the format bad? It said it imported it. It is so odd. Like there had been some issues recently, so I'm not issues, but like the format changed. So let me bring that up, and then I want to talk about the not the not the Dwarf 3 specifically, but just other things. Just trying to. Okay. I think a new field was added, and I had saved out. Oh, this is interesting. See, look, it's starting to fill in this part of the mosaic. I mean, you can see the massive artifacts there, but one thing I had noticed, actually, let me make sure that it's not, I don't have the, that I don't have that kind of night shift mode. Okay, night shift mode's off, good. But yeah, one thing I noticed when I was kind of stacking, and there's like a lot of noise here, like you'd start seeing the noise disappearing as it was kind of overlaying more images. Now, one of the downsides, so this was their kind of initial attempt at the Seestar internal mosaics, and it wasn't exposed in the app, but the latest versions have a mosaic mode that works, I think, a little differently than this, and it actually lets you plan out the mosaic. And I might end up updating one of my Seestars, in which case I'll demo it. But even then, it ends up spending, because of the way it does the mosaics, where you see how it's kind of scattershot around. It's just kind of, taking a series of photos, and that's the way the new mosaic mode works. It goes in a spiral, an outward spiral. So it starts at the target and it kind of goes around in kind of ever increasing sizes. And there's like a lot of overlap between frames, which does reduce, I think, some of the artifacts that you see here, but it's not very efficient. It ends up spending a lot of time moving the telescope, so much so like it doubles or triples how many it doubles or triples the amount of time per frame. So like if you have 10-second frames, I think it was like 20 seconds, 30 seconds per frame, because it's taking the frame and then it's spending a lot of time moving to the next frame. Whereas if you do the Seestar Alp SSE mosaics, it kind of divides it into larger panels, and then it just spends like if you say go for an hour and you have 4 panels, it spends 15 minutes on each panel, and so you have 4 panels that you end up stitching together instead of this. And so it's like more efficient because it's spending all of its time kind of imaging a series of frames before it moves to the next one. So it's not spending much time actually moving the telescope. Okay, so yeah, I was being generous. So a 10-second frame takes 31 seconds, because Wiley's site actually had gotten somebody's data Like someone had done, I think, Andromeda or something like that, and he actually wrote a little Python program, I think, that took all the individual exposures and graphed it. Um, and so you can see like the timing of it, and so yeah, and he also graphed like the kind of he showed how it's doing like a spiral. Hi, hi, Chris makes that. How's it going? Thanks for joining the stream. Oh yeah, look, it's actually almost filled in. It's I mean it's still like super noisy right here, but it's covered almost the whole frame. So you'll start seeing it starting to fill in some of this. I'm gonna go ahead and start this. Because I figure I might as well. And this is going to be an hour and a half. So let's go look at that. Oh, and see, you can see the coordinates moving because it's, I think I have it set to update like once a second or more than once a second so you can actually see how it's moving. What would be cool is if we could show kind of a live sky calendar view of where it's pointing, but we're not quite there yet. Hello, Red. How's it going? Thanks for joining the stream. Yeah, so one of the things, so the dwarf has come out, and I know there's like other smart telescopes out there, and there's been rumors that Seestar is going to be coming out with a new one, and it's not clear if it's going to be like a wider screen, a wider field of view, or there were rumors that it was going to be a that there might be a pro model. There's been a few different kind of rumors kicking around out there. But if you don't go with a smart telescope, and the Dwarf 3 does look very interesting. There was a review of it, I know, or there's been reviews of it, but unfortunately, I haven't looked at them yet. But from what I've heard, it looks like an interesting telescope. But if you don't have that, like if you have kind of if you have a rig where you have a lot more, like a more traditional rig where you have, a dedicated astronomy camera and a telescope and a mount, and you have a computer that controls all of it. A lot of people have used the ASI Air, which, the Seestar, it's basically has an ASI Air built into it. It's basically, it even claims that it's like, I can even show you that. I thought it was kind of funny. I was like, if I connect to the Seestar to port, what was it, this one? No, I'll do 4400. So I'm just connecting directly to the Seestar. I'm not using any of the Seestar Alp software. You connect to it. Is this one? Yeah. Look, it actually says it's an ASI Air. So it really is like it has an identity crisis. It actually thinks it's an ASI Air internally. So it's running basically a lot of the same software. It makes sense because the ASI Air is also by ZWO, Seestar is by ZWO, and like the ASI Air was great because it was like, it's great because it's an all-in-one solution. It has the software. It's fairly inexpensive. The problem is for some people is it ties you to a lot of things in the ZWO ecosystem, which can make things simpler. But if you have an astronomy camera, for example, from another company, you're out of luck. But there was this video that came out recently. Thanks for the new Raspberry Pi drop. Are you talking? you talking about an image, or are you talking about like support on the in the repo? Because I didn't update the image. I said I would, but I didn't. But people have been updating the script to make it work better when you do update it on the Pi. But so one of the things some people have come out, or so you have the ASI Air, which is pretty inexpensive, but it ties you a lot to the ZWO ecosystem. And then you can kind of roll your own astronomy. Where can I report problems and it depends. Like if you're talking about to Seestar ALP itself, just anybody can open a GitHub issue, or you can report an issue on the Discord server, the Seestar ALP, kind of the smart underground Discord server. But it's probably better to do it on the issues. If you go to issues, I'll drop a link. But basically, no, I didn't do a new image. I'm sorry. I promised I would, but I had problems. I had I don't want to make it sound worse than it is. I could say I had personal problems, but I had yeah, I had some things that tied me up recently. But I'm going to do it this weekend because it's so far behind now, and like all the new functionality that's come out. Now that said, if you use the image I have, you should be able to run. If you log into it, there's an update script that should update it to the latest version. Yeah, just purchase the ASI Air, still in the box. Yeah, I mean it's that's where it gets you, is the all the other stuff. Well, what came out recently, well, if you watch other astronomy YouTube channels like Dylan McDonald, who I'm sorry for butchering your name. Let me see. It was O'Donnell, thank you. So he came out with a video. I don't know why it's suggesting some of these. I don't know how to spell tonight. Anyway, he came out with this video recently, just a few days ago, about this. I'm not going to play it. Stop it. So he came out with this video about it's QHY. Yeah, QHY, who also has astronomy cameras, and they have other gear. And they had, I guess, a small computer device. Well, they're coming out with a new version of the software, but they're going to it's completely open source. They're taking existing open source software, which ZWO did too. They took some open source software, added some of their own stuff, but then didn't release. I have not independently verified this, but I've heard from people who I find credible that ZWO made some chain modifications to some open source software and haven't released it. So QHY is basically coming out with a new version, kind of like an ASI Air like firmware, and it runs on Raspberry Pis. They're going to apparently sell it. It sounds like they're going to create something like an ASI Air, a new version of it. Like they have one already, but they're going to create a new version of the hardware that'll have the software on it, but the software is going to be completely open, and they already have like a firmware out there people are starting to install. But let me find it. But speaking of kind of interesting, So like this is the hard, don't need an ad, stop it. I'm watching a YouTube ad in YouTube. Stop it. Skip. Okay. So I'm trying to find the screenshots. Okay, here. Like here's some of the screenshots from what they have so far. So like they have an Android app and they have the firmware that runs on the Seestar. I mean on the Seestar on the hardware like a Raspberry Pi. And so as you can see, it's the early days because a lot of it's in Chinese still. But they have a Discord server. I'm going to drop a link to this video. You should check it out if you haven't, because it's interesting. I downloaded the image and I'm going to try to install it on one of my Raspberry Pis this weekend. But I'll create a new version of the image first of my of the Seestar Alp software first. But it's interesting. And it's I think good from a competition point of view. Like here's another screenshot. And what was the one that was in here? And it uses was it PhD2 for guiding, which is what a lot of people use with Nina, I believe. Oh yeah, here's interesting. It's showing kind of where the sensor is pointing in the sky, and then this overlay here is the sensor view. So yeah, check that out because it's intriguing, and the fact that it's open source and you can install it on your own hardware, I think will be pretty cool. And so yeah, QHY and ZWO duking it out. But I mean, I think that's the ASI Air has so much, I feel like it has so much market share and mind share already that like by basically taking the open source software, adding stuff on top of it, and then open sourcing the whole lot of it, I think could be a good move on QHY's part. Like makes them a lot more competitive because like they can sell the hardware, and if people want to buy QHY cameras, there's nothing stopping them from doing it. Whereas if you got an ASI Air, it's like, well, I can't get a QHY camera now. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I know ZWO is one of those companies where it can be polarizing, like I can't say that I said I wasn't going to buy a ZWO camera. I'm not going to buy another ZWO camera, but I do actually have a ZWO camera. And then I have two Seestars. Yeah, and that it looks promising. Oh wow, I guess I missed the fact that the Android and iOS apps will be open source. Mead ASI. Yeah, and then Orion. Why not? Although somebody probably took the rights to that. But yeah, I do hope. I thought maybe I'd have it running for the next live stream, but that's going to be tomorrow, and I don't think I'm going to do that. The problem is I've committed to some parental duties over the weekend, so unfortunately that's going to cut into my my playing around with astronomy hardware time. But it does look like we're going to have some great weather towards the end of the upcoming week here. Like I was saying, there's going to be a front coming through, and that tends to clear up the sky and improve transparency a lot. So that gives me enough time to burn the image onto a Raspberry Pi. And I actually got a new SD card because I didn't trust some of the ones I had, and I actually I have the donor Raspberry Pi that I'm gonna because I ended up taking the Raspberry Pi that was running Seestar Alp, and I ended up like using it for another project because I hadn't been running it on the Pi for a few weeks because I'd been running it on my laptop because I'd been doing development on it, and it's just faster that way. And then something came up, and anyway, long story short, not tomorrow, but hopefully this week I will try out the that QHY. It's called what is it called? Core. Um, I don't have it here, but I'm gonna try it out and hopefully be able to demo it on stream. I just have to figure out if I have any hardware that can take advantage of it. Otherwise, I'll just demo like the screen. Now, funny enough, you mentioned why someone has not been able to unlock the ASI airs. I'm not going to include a link to it because I'd have to find it, but I don't want to include a link to it anyway. But you can look around, but I'm pretty sure I thought I'd run across it recently. I know some people have, like I saw a kernel. I think I saw a kernel for ASI Air. And yeah, I'm pretty sure people have. Yeah, I'm 95% sure that people have put their own stuff on the ASI Air. And a bunch of Raspberry Pi 5s just waiting. That's great. Says on your RASA. Well, I mean, you could use that if you're talking about the QHY software. You could, I guess, you could theoretically use it to control a RASA if there's a driver. So that's the thing, because since it isn't ASI Air, and it has to work with stuff. It has to work with a number of different manufacturers. I think there has to be like a standard driver, like INDI driver for the device. So if there's an INDI driver for the Celestron Origin, you should be able to control it with that. I mean, I haven't run it yet, but somebody did come up with an INDI driver for the Seestar, so you could use that. So actually, that would be funny, using that QHY software to control a Seestar. I might have to try that out. That would be funny. Yeah. Yeah, that would be funny. Okay. Is this actually imaging? Okay, it is stacking. So it's got this problem where it's showing the live view, but it's not showing the stacked view. So I'm going to switch away from this temporarily, because I had added some logic where if you go away from live view, it kind of like shuts it down for a specific telescope. So then when you go back in, it says, oh, you're stacking, and it goes into that mode. But I don't remember if it works. Okay. Yeah, I forgot the name. It's called Quarks. So yeah, the QHY Universal Astrophotographic Remote Capture System. Chauffeur instead of a driver. That would be, yeah. I think somebody should just do that just for the sake of it. Yeah, anything with an INDI driver it should control, which would be cool. And then the one is very basic, but that's a challenge then. If we could make it better, then that would be funny. Just I don't know why, just for the sake of doing it. Yeah, hacking the ASI Air would be the same as a Raspberry Pi. Yeah, I was about to say what you just said. It's basically a Raspberry Pi with the power ports. Unless you just basically kind of get into the ASI Air, leave all the ASI Air software alone, and then just run your own, like add additional stuff. Like people have done that with the Seestar, where they've with older firmwares, it was easy to root it, and so they just basically added stuff to the Seestar. So it's still running the Seestar software, and they just added some other stuff internally, since it is basically an ASI Air as well. So if you had a, I don't know if anybody's done it, and I don't know if I want to know if anybody's done it, but if you had a rooted Seestar, you should be able to install Seestar ALP on it, and so you could have, like, you wouldn't have to run the app, but the Seestar itself would be the web server that had basically the control software running on it. Yeah. Just use it with a Seestar Alp with a Federation of 16 Seestar. Yeah, that would work too. Although I don't know what the upper limit is on it. I think there is like a variable that in the software where it only like maximum number of 10, but I don't know that that's an actual. I don't think that's a necessarily a limit that couldn't just easily be modified by increasing the number. I don't think there's any like practical limit. Let me see if that freed up the live view. One other thing that came up. So it's I moved away from the imaging on A. So are any images coming down that are A? I only see B images. So that might have freed it up. So that might, fingers crossed, that'll actually work. So one other thing that came up on a previous live stream. Yeah, this is the stacked view. So here's Stephen's quintet right there. Kind of faint, but there. Quantum computer. Well, it could, I mean, it could work several different ways. You know, seeing an image before you wanted it, or it could would it take an image? It could possibly take an image and not take an image at the same time. Like that could be interesting. Quantum mechanical Seestar. Oh, so one other thing. So this was another thing that came up on a previous live stream. There was someone asked about T Coronae Borealis, the blaze star that was supposed to go nova, and there were very specific predictions about it, that it's like, oh, it's going to be in the summer, you know, before September. Well, here it is in September. It hasn't gone nova yet. And so there's been, anyway, I'm going to include a link to a video that I think came out today from Anton Petrov. He was it today? Yeah, he did a video today. I'll drop it in the chat. Basically talking about T Coronae Borealis and where the prediction's wrong, and it's an interesting video. And I thought I'd mention it because it came up in a recent live stream on one of my recent live streams where somebody was talking about it. And basically the gist of that video, which I think you should watch it because it's interesting. It gets into kind of where the predictions came from and why they might have been slightly off. But the gist of it is it will go nova, but maybe that estimate of the summer was wrong. Well, it was wrong. But the reason why it's wrong, I'm not going to get into it, but based on like some newer measurements that have been more precise measurements that weren't just, I believe, just statistical analysis before, but actual measurements with like X-ray telescopes and stuff indicate that, like, according to those kind of models, they suggested it still would happen in the near term, but it might be through between now and more like May next year. But even then, one of the other predictions was like, you know, early spring of 2025 plus or minus a year, you know, which obviously wouldn't So basically anywhere from now to 2026. You should watch the video. It's interesting, but basically don't give up hope on it. Just keep an eye on the news and observe it periodically to because when it goes nova, it'll be bright for only a few days before it kind of fades again. Um, yeah, yeah. You know what? One of my concerns was let me look this up because I hadn't looked it up to see if it was actually possibly going to be a problem, but um basically my thought was, let me switch back to the wait, let me switch to my stop it. Trying to get rid of anyway, trying to switch to the plain backyard or plain horizon. Is this the one I want? Okay, this is a relatively vanilla one. Okay, so the blaze star, and I'm going to turn on. Okay, let me go back. My concern was, at what point does the blaze star, will it get to the point where it'll be too close to the sun? Actually, what I can do is just get rid of the horizon. And okay. And then yeah, I guess it doesn't get too close. I guess my thought was that would be really unfortunate if it ends up like really close to the sun, and then that's when it goes nova that week, where it would be like lost in the glare from the sun. That would be bad. So it looks like it's fine. But yeah, I have a feeling a lot of people will because unfortunately it's like a lot of astronomy events, it gets kind of hyped up, and then um, it could end up being a disappointment, or people will lose interest, and then it'll happen, and a lot of people will just kind of and not even watch for it. But yeah, check out that video because it was interesting, because it got into the details about why it hasn't happened yet and when it might happen. Yeah, be like Icarus and melt. Yeah, that would be. So let me see. So that was an interesting little video. What else was there? Yeah, this thing, I want to check that out, the QHY one. Also, I had mentioned, again with ads, I'd mentioned how there's some new functionality that Kai had added to support federation of Seestars, where if you have multiple Seestars, it'll have a unified scheduler, and it'll divide up different panels from a mosaic. He actually did some video about it. So I'll drop this, and I should add it to the description. But he came out with this video very recently with some additional kind of information about the unified view. Now, mind you, the unified scheduler isn't usable through the web interface yet. He's showing it through Bruno, which is the kind of the raw API tool that you can get to all of the API functionality with. But Wiley Site is working on adding modifying SSC, the web interface, to be able to use the federation. But that was kind of a video about it, and he also does a little demo video of SSC, so you can check that out. And
Yeah, the comment will just fizz by, and it's yeah. So how many people have really have more than one Seestar? More than you might expect. Yeah, like what I say. Yeah, there's more than you might expect. I mean, because I mean, it's a $500 telescope, but it's also like an ASI. I mean, it's got the sensor, the optics, the mount, the computer controlling it, and so when you compare the cost of it versus like a dedicated rig, like it's much more expensive, and so it's kind of in the it's a trade-off, but like having more than one is a lot less of a jump than getting getting like a different like a full astro rig. Um, that said, the other good thing about the I don't know if he's mentioned it. Yeah. So another thing about the Federation that's useful is there's some functionality like Wiley site. He hasn't mentioned this yet, but the internally there was some logic built to support offline mode where you could bring up the Seestar, the SSE web interface, enter your schedule, and then it would you could bring up the Seestar later, and the schedule would kind of it would start controlling the Seestar. The problem is that code was kind of problematic internally. It took, I mean, it conceptually was easy, but you start getting into all these little edge cases that really kind of end up being a big hassle trying to get them to work. Uh, like without, like you'd always run across failure modes, and we'd add some new functionality and forget to modify it to work in offline mode, and then I made some changes to the way socket handling work, and it kind of partially broke offline mode. The good thing is the Federation kind of it's a more generic thing, and but it looks like potentially like Wiley site was talking about, he would be able to get rid of the offline mode and basically so whether you have one telescope and you're using offline mode or you have multiple Seestars and you want to use Federation or whatever, it'll just be one set of logic in the code, which will make it hopefully more robust and less buggy, and we're less likely to break it. But yeah, and like Wiley's site said, um, like people have been kicking this around that well you could have kind of distributed Seestars and then control it from a single pane of glass, which would be really kind of cool. And I guess that's why he used specifically the term federated, the idea that you could have maybe one Seestar controller controlling other Seestar controllers that then control Seestars. I'm guessing that's where it's going. And because like there's people who've talked about like as part of outreach they'd gotten like through their local astronomy club or science museum they'd gotten a lot of Seestars, and so it would be kind of cool to be able to control a bunch of them in kind of a more consistent, robust way. Yeah, you go to the corner shop and pick up a 6-pack of Seestars. Yeah, well, you took your Seestar to the Nebraska Star Party. There were probably 5 there. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like it could be handy for if you have a bunch of people kind of on an ad hoc basis where you want to kind of pool your telescopes together and do one, like do some kind of big stack of either something very faint or like a big mosaic. You could do that with the Federation, and you can if you just have a bunch of Seestars or more than one. That said, I was talking to Wiley's site about this. Like realistically, most people are going to have only one, so we're going to make sure it works well with that, because that's going to be most people. Most people are only going to have one. Um, but we're also making it where for people who have multiple ones, uh, it's more um, kind of better and more robust from a workflow point of view. I mean, like you may have seen it in previous uh, streams where I tend not to do this, but I've done it where I'll have the same mosaic loaded into both, and then I have to manually specify, the panels. It's just more error prone, and when it's all being driven by the same software, like it would make sense for it to just be unified, where the software is handling the details, and some of it's for personal reasons. Like Kai himself, he has at least 3 Seestars, so yeah. Hi Seiko, how's it going? Thanks for joining the stream. Yeah, I mean, yeah, visual astronomy. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of people who do it still, but definitely the smart telescope kind of thing, or if you like me live in a very light polluted area where it's a challenge. It's a challenge to do visual astronomy. So, because I mean, even when, because I remember, that's what I did when I started astronomy. I was doing pure visual astronomy, and it was very much a challenge in the city, not just from the light pollution point of view, but there's just so much ambient light. Like, it was hard it was hard to get any kind of dark adaptation, just because of, not just because of the sky, but because of like neighbors' lights or street lights or just other kind of lights that would kind of interfere with your ability to kind of dark adapt a little bit. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I know Wiley's site, he, like, based on his descriptions of his workflow, he likes putting the schedule together at the beginning of the evening or before the evening starts, and then just, setting things up and going. And so a lot of that functionality, like the offline functionality, was very helpful to have for his workflow. I have more than one Seestar. I haven't used mosaics as much, but I do like the ability to kind of divide the work up. Speaking of mosaics, look at this. Like, this is that internal mosaic, the kind of the hidden old version that they were kind of experimenting with, but like the artifacts are pretty significant on this image. I'm probably going to stop this this panel before, or this target before too long, and then point at something else. Yeah, 100 cable channels, and yet nothing's on TV. I mean, nothing's on the telescope. Is it possible to? Well, so I've actually thought about that. About since I have 2 Seestars, and since my network is actually not totally junk now, I finally got it somewhat passable. I have thought about that, about well, I mean, you said sharp cap. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. Like, since the network is somewhat usable, I can go right to the I haven't done it yet. I haven't done it in anger, as it were. I've done it kind of as an experiment, but there are people who take, there's scripts. It's easy enough to script it where you can pull the latest images off the Seestar. And one thing I've been wanting to do is kind of continuously pull the images off onto my computer and then run something like, sharp cap, and then do the live stacking on my Mac. It wouldn't actually involve SSC at all, and then or one of the other software like the AS, like there's a bunch of them that support live stacking, and then I could potentially do whatever I wanted to. But I haven't done that yet. But it should be possible. And yeah, that banding is because this is the old, hidden, never meant to see the light of day mosaic mode that was built into the Seestar pre-version 2.0. Once 2.0 came out, they added a new mosaic mode, but this is the old one. And the only reason I have this on is because someone had accidentally turned that setting on, and didn't realize it and was wondering why their images were totally junk, because it was like all these artifacts and just it looked like the telescope had gone crazy. And then Wiley Sight and us, I figured out that it was this mosaic mode that was there on the Seestar on the older firmwares that wasn't really meant to be used. And so of course I thought, let me try to use it, because of course it's the yeah. And yeah, star hopping mode for the classic astronomers. I mean, yeah. I mean, that would yeah, why not? Yeah, you could have this SSC. Well, that's true. That's true. Instead of me copying the images off, since I'm already streaming things down, I could just have it save the images. And I have actually done that as an experiment in the code, where I actually had it save the frames locally. But you all mention these things, and of course now I've got to make a note. Maybe I'll actually try that tomorrow, just for grins. Save images from, and actually from Seestar Alp it would be really straightforward, because I wouldn't have to explicitly run anything else. Like, it's already grabbing the frames off the Seestar. I could have it just write them out. Local directory for live stacking. Yeah, we'll try that. Maybe, if not tomorrow, maybe the next time it's clear, like later in the week. Yeah. You almost got some live coding. I mean, I had the code up here earlier. Like, PyCharm is the name of this IDE I run, and I swear I have this running all the time now. I don't like quit it, even when this is my personal laptop. I'm not even like doing stuff with it, but it's always there. So I have a thought and I just kind of go to it. But what was it? It was let me go look at the imaging. Did I actually save? No, I didn't. Let's save. It must have been in a local test I was doing, because or no, it was IM save. There's IM in code. I think it was in a local kind of, when I was trying to figure out some of the imaging. I think and then I deleted the code from the repo. So yeah, the mosaic mode was probably the underpinning of what they released in 2.1, because it does, like, the version they released officially kind of does that spiral pattern, and this kind of appears to be doing the spiral pattern, because it'll start in the middle, and actually I think it's doing kind of that. It's just not overlapping as much as the new code. The new code overlaps a lot, but it kind of started here and it kind of goes like this, but then it also seems to double back. I don't know. Maybe it is doing a spiral, but yeah, it would be neat to combine images from Seestars 1,000 miles apart. I mean, you say that. Yeah, I mean, that would be neat. Yeah. I wonder. Yeah, it would be cool just for various reasons. But you could do some things, some interesting things with that, perhaps. Yeah. Yeah, if you could send me the like maybe send me the script in Discord or just point me to where it is, and I'll run the scripts against it. Um how far is this into it? So I did this for 45 I did it for an hour and a half. So it should only go 45 minutes for this panel and then it'll switch to the other panel. So it was only a two panel mosaic that I did here of Stevens Quintet and the Deer Lick group, which is a very strangely named galaxy cluster. Um, and then I need to figure out what I'm doing over here. Yeah, a little more than 1,000. Well, yeah, if you're talking about federating, yeah, Seiko, and anybody in North America, it's definitely going to be a bit more than 1,000 miles. Okay, cool. Do you think in Python? No, I don't. But I mean, like if you program a lot, like and I've heard like there's thinking in code and kind of thinking of the code you're going to write, and then there's going further and like running the code in your head, as it were. Like it has to be simple, obviously. um but yeah, I mean, a person, I mean, there are times where I'll do that where I'm actually kind of running the code in my head. I mean, it's a weird, it's an anecdote, but it's I remember once I was having lunch and I'd been working on this bug. And I mean, it's kind of like the way your subconscious works or whatever, like the kind of below the surface, like your brain's still working on a problem. And I actually like was sitting there eating lunch and I found a bug in some code just thinking about it, which was kind of, it was actually a pretty complicated bug. And it kind of, I was like, okay. Like I was running through, it was like Java or C code in my head. And I found a bug while I was eating lunch, not in front of a computer. I was just sitting in a restaurant and I'm like, oh, I think I found the bug. And I don't remember if there were coworkers there. If there were, they probably were a little disturbed that I found a bug while I was eating a hamburger or something. Anyway, but yes, I don't, yeah, I tried to, I try not to get too in the weeds on things. Um, okay, so this is now moving to the next target. You can see the RA and declination. I do want to experiment with this a bit more because one of the things I did for specifically this part of the screen, it's actually using not quite a WebSocket if you've heard of WebSockets, but it's using basically the same idea as a WebSocket. Whereas this part of it, it's just kind of a normal web request that in the background is going a few times a second. The nice thing about this one is it's basically continuously getting data. So as soon as the back end says, okay, something's changed, it just pushes it to the browser. And so it can update several times a second. Whereas, so I want to kind of move this functionality into here. It's a below the surface detail, and the only reason I'm bothering is because it makes it more responsive. And so my plan was it basically it should give, my goal was to get kind of a similar feel to the app where, or better, where when you push a button you get immediate feedback from the Seestar, or at least as quick as you can given the network. And instead of kind of like, I mean, like a lot of web apps these days where it's more interactive instead of kind of a more traditional web. You click on a link and then you have to wait. Anyway, it's just kind of a little detail, but it's partly driven by the fact that sometimes when I'm clicking on things here, it kind of, there's a delay, and I try to always wait because I'm like, did I actually click it? And then I have to wait for it to respond. So I'm trying to fix that. Anyway. you mentioned sudo apt-get. You know Debian Linux. Speaking of technical, that's not something that the average person's just gonna be able to rattle off. But I do like that app, get a quart of milk. Yeah, I try not to. I'm trying to think. I've known people who were like that, but I try not to. Although there are times where sometimes my kids will look at me because I'm using like some programming or computer term to describe something that's has nothing to do with computers, and they'll like, what did you just call that? And I'm like, oops. Yeah. Anyway, it happens. Okay, so this is going along. I'm going to move this like I did the last time, where I go off the live view screen to get it to kind of stop the internal process so that I can switch back and then get the stack view. Oops, sorry. Didn't mean to hit that. Yeah. You know, the one thing that, yeah, I mean, Google, or like a lot of people just chat GTP, like you just ask it. I mean, there's even like, what was it? Shells, like is it the Warp shell? Where it's like a Mac OS shell that it has like chat GPT built in. So you just tell it what you want to do, and it gives you the command. Which is, in some ways, it's just a new way of Googling for things. Sometimes more focused and accurate, sometimes not. Sometimes not. Okay. This mosaic on the right has been going an hour and a half. That's crazy. Let me go find something else to image here, because this is getting like we get. I mean, yeah, I don't think those artifacts are going to decrease anytime soon, or if at all. So that, I don't think I'm going to do Pluto. I think Pluto's out of reach right now. I wonder, should I do just trying to figure out what would be best to do next. Let me check. Is telescope A. Is it still getting? I think it's still getting the images, because I see, yeah, it's still getting the images. So I'm just gonna leave it. Oops. What am I doing? Oh, my shell is going crazy here. So weird. Okay. It was like in this scrolling up mode, which was weird. No, it's still getting the live view. Very frustrating. Object-oriented shopping. I've seen people, what was it, making fun of Java, and like, yeah, having to do with the way it does object-oriented programming. But I don't remember the specific joke, but it was funny, especially back when I did Java. Where is your? So my Seestar Alp is running on my Mac. This is all running locally because since I have a development version, I'm not running it on my Raspberry Pi. Once I get live view more stable, I'm going to go back to running it on my Raspberry Pi. But right now it's on my Mac, which is M1. So 2-3-year-old MacBook Pro. But it's like the M1 Max, so it's like the faster of the M1s. But earlier it was like pegging the CPU. It was like, now it's okay, but it was like at 100% CPU. But I think it's because my local changes. I think I introduced some bugs. What target did I want to point at? Oh, is M33 visible now? M33. It is visible. So let me try doing M33. I mean, why not? I'm looking at M31, so let me switch to M33. Yeah, so unfortunately, this is kind of a weird thing where I have to go to this mode and then, like, I'm redoing live view. Like the version I had was kind of all the modes unified, and now I'm switching it to where there's like a star mode and moon mode, sun mode, scenery mode, and it'll have like subsets of the buttons visible. But it's still work in progress. What I was gonna do is I want to turn off the mosaic mode since that's causing. So this is the kind of the internal mosaic mode. So I'm going to disable that. And I am going to do what I did the last time, and I'm going to manually trigger this. So I'm going to just go M33 and then go to, and then go look at the live view. Let me look at this. Did it finally stop the live view on the other one? I think this one finally stopped the live view, so I can go back here. Looking at the chat. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it is fast, but I mean, I want to be able to run Seestar Alp on my Raspberry Pis as well, and I want it to be able to run live view with both telescopes doing live view, and so I want it to be able to work kind of reliably and actually be able to work with the Raspberry Pi without overloading it. I know Wiley Site runs it on the Raspberry Pi with live view, and I think he said it's fine. Oh, so it's supposedly pointing at M33, so I'm going to go ahead and kick off the imaging. And it should start. Now, did this one actually do the 3-point alignment? We'll see. Nope, it didn't. So it's doing it now. We'll see if it works. So the kind of the old mosaic, the mosaic that was the Seestar was doing before they kind of officially announced it, it's only 50% larger. So instead of 1080 by 1920, it's whatever 50% bigger of that width and height. So it's like 16 something by 2880 or something like that. Yeah, see, 3-point alignment's not going to work because, again, too close to a house. Oops. Sometimes I dismiss it and it lags, and then I think it didn't dismiss, and so I click it again and I actually had, and it came back on the screen, which is why sometimes you see that happen. Okay, so yeah, the 3-point alignment failed, and now it's trying to stack. um, I cannot speak to that because I don't go on the Facebook uh forums very often. But what I've heard, um, that maybe I wouldn't be surprised. I've heard some things. I'm going to reserve. I'm not going to make comments about it. Um, but yeah, I mean, some at least some of the people I've seen on the Facebook forum, I mean, they're new. They're new to the Seestar and astronomy, astrophotography, and that's fine. I mean, I mean, this is. I mean, personally, I want to get Seestar ALP where it's a lot more user friendly for everybody. Um, it's definitely a bit rough around the edges, and we know about that. I mean, we know. I think we all, everybody who's working on it agrees that it's not aimed at. It has a higher barrier to entry than the app. Um, that said, I think I I would like to get it to the point where, I mean, we won't have a manual, but at least somebody could, without knowing, without being too, what do you call it? You don't have to be super technically proficient, where you can just download the executable and run it, and then you're done. I mean, even the Raspberry Pi, although Raspberry Pis are straightforward, it is a barrier for some people. So, like the self-contained executable for Windows, I think that's a great step in the right direction. It's been out for months, and I think the more robust we make everything in Seestar ALP, the better it'll be for everybody. Um, and we get people on the Discord server who have problems with it, and they don't necessarily, um, it's difficult sometimes talking people through. I mean, if you work in tech at all, like it's a perennial problem trying to talk people through things. But like one of the developers, contributors to Seestar ALP added a support page. I mean, it's like right here on the branch I have, where it'll basically describe your problem. You hit download, and it basically zips up all the log files and dumps them on, so like even if you have it on running on a Raspberry Pi or whatever, you don't have to fish out in the file system. It just downloads it into your browser, so it goes wherever you get your downloads go. And then, you know, people we can tell people to just send us the zip file. And so that, I know that's already been used a couple of times to kind of try to figure out problems, just kind of reducing friction for the users, where they just tell them to go to the support page and download bundle, and then send us the bundle, and we'll dig through the logs and figure it out, or try to figure it out. But yeah, I mean, like I say, the people on the Facebook page, and I'm not gonna criticize them too much, because some of them have watched my videos and said, and on ones I've produced, made on different Seestar related things, and I think, everybody starts you have to start somewhere, for knowledge wise. And so if the Seestar is kind of their introduction to astrophotography, it's better than the hardware I had when I started, honestly. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe what we need to do is produce, like, no, it's not gonna, well, no, I was gonna say maybe we need to produce our own app, but no, that would be too much. Yeah, I mean, Seestar ALP has been around. I think the first commits were like in April this year. Like there was development work happening before then, and the web interface was in like June this year. Like it really hasn't been out that long. And it's, all people just kind of working on it in their spare time. So it's made a lot of progress. I think by the end of the year, it's going to be pretty, I mean, at the rate we're improving it, like I bet it'll be really good by the end of in the next few months. Um, yeah, there's a button on the remote control that executes GitHub branch. I mean, yeah, I mean, like trying to, I mean, I guess I'm, I guess I'm sympathetic to it because of working with less technical family members, being kind of like, like being the family help desk person, and seeing the struggles. I mean, yeah, yeah. So I mean, I that's why I personally was really excited to see the initial when the executable first came out for Windows for Seestar Alp, um, because like you had to have development tools. I mean, even now, like if you're running it on a Mac, you have to have like development tools installed. Now, like personally, I didn't have to install anything because I do development on this computer anyway. But for the average person, like with a Windows computer or even a Mac, like that's too much. And then starting to trying to tell people GitHub or whatever, it's like, no, that's a non-starter. So yeah. But yeah, I can imagine, like, especially if people hadn't played around with Seestar ALP recently, like if they only know about the old version of it or the version of it before the web interface, um, and before some like the self-contained binary where you had to have like development and tools installed, yeah, like I could imagine them being like, no, I'm not touching that. Uh, yeah, because it wasn't as approachable back then. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, I do feel like it's brought a lot of people, who maybe, maybe they were casually into astronomy, or maybe they got interested because of the solar eclipse this year, or something they wanted to do. I've run across people where like they used to do it years ago, but now they're retired and, they're getting back into it, and, didn't want to invest a ton of money up front building out a rig, or people who, travel or live in, if you live in an apartment or condo, it doesn't take up much room, the Seestar. So yeah, I mean, I think it's been great. I mean, I ended up with two of them, and I could have canceled the other order, but I'm like, I think two of them's fine. I'll come up. I'll make use of two of them. Um, Speaking of things, I think I might have to restart the software because I think it fell over again, which is why it's experimental. That's interesting. I threatened to restart it and then the image loaded. I'm looking at the logs here, just trying to see if this right one is going to load, because it should have. Yeah, let me just restart it. I mean, they're both on a schedule. I mean, they're like this one is already doing the second panel of the schedule, so it's fine. That's a very small image. Oh no, that's not the image. That's the controller. Okay. All right. We'll wait for that to load. Clearly need to do more work. But yeah, I mean, yeah. hopefully it'll get to the point where it's more approachable for the people who are just starting out and not and where it won't cause like a visceral reaction on Facebook when you suggest using Seestar Alp and people are like, oh no. So yeah. Um Man, this is like, sorry, I'll show you what I'm seeing. Why I'm It's like it's having issues. List index out of range. That is so weird. It is not having a good day. Let me switch. I think it's okay. I wonder if this will finally recover. Because I changed it where if you move off the live view screen, it'll eventually say, oh, I'm going to stop trying to grab images. But it takes like 30. I set it to 30 seconds, where after 30 seconds of you not being on live view, theoretically, it should say, I'm not on live view anymore. Let me stop doing this madness. But it doesn't, the way I did it, it doesn't consistently detect that it isn't running anymore. Huh. Oh, I forgot. The Dino T-Rex. Darn it. Let me make note of that again. I like Easter egg type things, so I feel that's something like that. Easter T-Rex loading screen. Or at the very least, something more interesting. Even if it's not interactive, at least something less static. Syntax error. Yeah, exactly. That is pretty funny. Yeah. Index. This is not happy, so I'm just going to stop it and restart it because it's clearly it's having a moment. Wow. Okay, let's try this again. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because like I have these kind of issues, and Wiley's site said, I mean, he's not running these, like these are local changes that I have, and he's like, oh no, it was running, and I'm like, okay. Too bad mine falls over every other image. Yeah. No, honestly, and people do that. Like, yeah, I haven't gone on any car trips recently that weren't astronomy oriented. Like for the eclipse where I brought along like a bunch of gear, including my Seestar. Well, I didn't bring both Seestars. I brought one of them. Um, but yeah, like I've been planning that if I was going to drive anywhere, I was going to bring the Seestar, one of my Seestars along, just to have it. Actually, this I was potentially going to go somewhere this weekend where I might be out past sunset, and it was going to be out of town, so I was actually going to bring one of my Seestars with me just in case. So that way, if I'm out there like an hour past sunset, I'll in a Bortle 4, I might use the opportunity to take some photos. Whereas I wouldn't necessarily do that with like one of my full telescopes. I wouldn't at all. Like, whereas it isn't even a consideration for the Seestar. I just throw it in the case, which I have, I still have the case, and just put it in the trunk of the car. Yeah, so it's great for that kind of stuff. The main reason behind the dyno is because where the light emitted from said object in space. Yeah, yeah, simplicity. Yeah, is that real? I mean, you're I mean, that would make sense, like at sunset. That's true. Like with the telescope. I mean, using it as like a terrestrial telescope. It would be perfect. It's perfect for that. That's cool. Family of bears? That would be that's neat. Um okay. Is this actually it's actually what? Don't tell me it's having another it's doing it again. What? Actually, you might get your live coding. Let me see if I can figure out what this error is. Exception encoding frame list index out of. Let me look at this error. Well, traded to me for a telescope. That's what happened to my younger brother. My parents told me all along I was an only child, and then they told me the truth. I was traded. My younger brother was traded in for a telescope. No, not. Let me see. Exception encoding frame. Exception. It helps if I can spell it. Exception encoding frame. So one of the things I'd been meaning to do here is what I need to do is just and actually I don't even know if this will work, but we'll try. Basically what happened is it's having an error. So for I don't know why. It's getting an image from the Seestar. It's having a problem with that image. It's printing out the error saying, hey, I have a problem with this image, but then it doesn't do anything else. And so the bad image is still there. So I just basically, if it's having a problem with the image, I'm going to throw it away. I mean, because it's going to, the next time it comes through, if it hasn't gotten a new image, it's still going to have the same error. So hopefully that'll fix it. It's still throwing the exception. Why is it throwing an exception? And what's really confusing is there's many things confusing. What's confusing me is this code was working. Nothing has changed. I'm going to switch off this image and then I'll restart it and see if the other stack has the same issue. Like, that makes no sense. Like, literally nothing has changed. I hadn't made any code changes, and now it's suddenly like not pulling the image correctly. So let me go with this one. It's throwing an error too. I need to look at that a little bit more. Oh, nice. So like I was saying earlier, Wiley Site's working on getting the federated scheduler working in the web interface. And he may have gotten it. Go out to a planetarium. That would be funny. It's like, look at all the photos I took. And it's like, that's amazing. How did you get such a close-up of that galaxy? Oh. Yeah. I mean, the Seestar, I mean, does it give unrealistic expectations? I mean, it makes it really easy. I guess from my point of view, by making it easy, taking care of a lot of the details, I mean, I guess if you don't care about the details, that's fine. I think that's fine because you just end up with a photo you can share that you took yourself of something. I think that's cool. On the other hand, it does hide a lot of details. And so if you want to move past that and kind of get deeper into the hobby, I don't know. It's always that kind of dilemma slash trade off of something that ends up being very user friendly and approachable, but then holds people's hands and they don't take the next step. Would they have taken the next step? Not everybody's going to take the next step. I don't know. I mean, it does make it very easy. um, and also, yeah, I mean, it's like a lot of things. People might also get incredibly disappointed too when they take a photo of something, and although it's neat and good, and then you go look at Wikipedia and I mean, that's always a problem. I mean, like I'll see that too, where I'm like, I want to see if what I'm imaging reflects what the object actually looks like. And so I'll look up things on Wikipedia or wherever. And of course, there'll be like a photo from the Hubble Space Telescope. And I'm like, okay, that was a multi-billion dollar telescope in space. So, of course, it's going to have a bit more detail. Speaking of things that are having issues, I need to figure that out. Is there a building in the road? Yeah. Why is this erring? It's failing on both telescopes. And I didn't change any of that. It's saying list index out of range. So red image size. And it's at this point where it's throwing the exception. Yeah. 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 I mean, yeah. I mean, for social media, I mean, it is cool. I mean, it's good for that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, if you're sometimes that next step can be a real doozy. um, Especially if for people who are yeah starting from scratch. I think you're dating yourself, Cosmic Ray. I mean, you're talking about hyper film. Like, I remember that. I never did it because I was I was like a student and I didn't have that kind of money. But I was getting to the point where I thought about doing that, about about like doing my own developing in a dark room and then like yeah, having having film that was like yeah. Yeah, I mean it's so easy compared to that. And like I mean even it yeah, I mean even when I look at the results I even get like from, like a mirrorless camera that I was hand holding and just like seeing the ISOs that I mean that have been around for years on these mirrorless cameras where you can get like ISOs in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. And I remember when ISO 1000 film came out and that was just like that was a revelation. Like my dad and we took all these photos of like candle, being lit by candles and stuff because it was like it was so cool being able to do that. Like and that like the photos they took with the photos that Kodak like the ads for Kodak back then, when they came out with that film, they were, they had these photos of like something just lit by candles and stuff. So of course we wanted to try it out because it's like, yeah, it was amazing. But then, yeah, what people had to do for astrophotography back then, and then yeah, like guiding, like you didn't have computers to guide the stuff. Um, and then you couldn't yeah, you couldn't guide the stuff. Like you had to have a very precise mount, and like you'd manually would you manually guide back then? I don't even remember because I never even did it at that level because I didn't have that kind of money for the. I mean, I was part of the astronomy club and there were people there who did that, but um, yeah, and just the modern astrophotography where you don't have to take like a single sub that's an hour long. Like that was the only option you had for an hour exposure, and whereas now we can take a few second exposures and stack them in software and get amazing results. Like, yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think I have them, but I used to have some old astronomy magazine and sky and telescopes from like the 80s, but I don't think I have them anymore. I still have some old books from around that vintage, but yeah, yeah, and yeah, Sony's mirrorless. Yeah, they can go. Some of them can go beyond that. I mean, like I got a new Canon that'll go past. I think it goes up to 100 or 200,000 ISO, and I've gotten some pretty crazy results taken at night, where it's like you couldn't. Yeah, it's just a level of detail that was quite amazing, and the noise was like manageable. Yeah, yeah, clock drive, PE correction, periodic. Yeah. Yeah, I don't. I remember people like pushing stuff and yeah, processing it or not processing it, but like yeah, like you say, like they were treating it beforehand before using it. But yeah, like I say, I didn't have that kind of money to do it back then. So I was pure visual astronomer back then. Um, but yeah, some of the stuff. And walk, uh, this stuff. Yeah, it's what was it? It was funny because my I lived there briefly, but my parents grew up in Wisconsin, and one of them was telling me about walking to school in the snow, and I was like, "What was it? Uphill both ways?" And they were like, "Actually, there was an uphill stretch, but because it went up and down, so technically they had to deal with uphill both ways." But anyway, like, well, that deflated my joke I was trying to make. I was like, actually, it was uphill both ways. Um, so why is this airing out? So it is. Yeah, no, I've heard people talking about that, but yeah, I don't remember. Like you had to. I remember what was it? Am I remembering that correctly? I remember wearing like not quite hip waders, but like almost stuff you go wear when you're fishing. Because when the snow melted, there was like so much, like our basement flooded and stuff like that. You have to, anyway. um, so yeah, I don't think they did the bread bag thing, although they might have. Yeah, one of them might have. Um, but yeah, let's see. Um, so this shouldn't matter. And why is it so exception encoding frame? It doesn't even make sense. I'm like so confused. List index out of range. Sorry, I'm trying to get the images back and I'm at a loss why it's throwing these errors. Um, yeah, I've bread bags that I mean, I think we had like in Wisconsin you have so much snow. I think most like I think we mostly had like boots, like galoshes and snow boots actually because it was just the amount of snow was crazy. Like we were kind of I used to describe it, we were kind of midway between like the Great Lakes and like Min- like International Falls, Minnesota, which was often one of the coldest places in the lower 48. And so we had like the lake effect snows combined with cold weather, like extreme cold weather. Although I think like places like Rochester and or Buffalo, New York got more snow than us. It wasn't we weren't slouches in the snow there. Like we'd get several feet of snow. Um like just and it would sit there for a long for I think what was it? Was it a whole month we had where it never got above freezing or was it like or never got above zero? I forget. We had one winter that was like particularly brutal. And when I say zero, I mean zero Fahrenheit. Um, I think the coldest it ever got. It's funny. I've had this conversation with people where I'm like, with people outside of the U.S. where he said it had gotten down to like 40 below zero, and they were like, "Well, what's that in Celsius?" I'm like, the scales cross at that around that point, so it's the same. Um, so yeah, it was pretty bad. Yeah. Yep. Don't miss it at all. Yeah. High school marching band where yeah, I could see that. Yeah, those band shoes. That would be. Oh, you went to college in Rochester. Oh, that's brutal. Yeah. Yeah. My when I was I think it was before I was born, my dad had to climb out the second story window of the house my parents were at to like dig out the front door of the house because the drift had kind of completely gone up to the second floor. And so he had to climb out and dig out the front door. Um, yeah, 100 megabyte hard drive. Yeah, I mean, I remember those days. Yeah, the kids off third floor balconies. Yeah, I mean, we had, and I remember like, well, because we were out in a rural area, and so you houses would disappear because they'd like the drift would go up against them, and the house you couldn't see the house from the road, like some of the houses from the road because they were completely covered. Like one side of them was completely covered in snow. So yeah, it wasn't quite as bad as Rochester or Buffalo, but we were pretty competitive, I think. And because it was like farm country, the winds like could blow all the way down from the North Pole without anything to stop them, and it just yeah, it was bad. Which is why I live in Texas now, because that's it. Cassette, 80-minute cassette, or what about 8 tracks? I remember showing an 8 track to a friend of mine from college, and they were baffled. They had never seen one before. Wow. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that if you're in certain areas where you would need to get out. Yeah, I mean, because like my dad, he had to climb out a window on the second floor to get out. Um, yeah, that's pretty rough. We don't have to deal with that here. We just have to deal with hurricanes, torrential rain, stuff like that. Um, why is this? I don't get it. Like it was imaging and now it's failing. And I didn't make any changes to that code. The only change I made was one to try to get around this error. Let's see. E dot. Was there a stack trace? What's the stack trace? Yeah. 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 What was it? In the app, I was trying to avoid bringing up the app, but since, I mean, I could bring up the app. I had actually thought of that earlier, but I was resisting doing it, but hopefully it will detect that there's a Seestar there. Okay. It is imaging. Looks fine. So I quit that. It says sending star subscription. It read, and that's the size it should be. But then it's list index out of error. List index of range. Let me see. Raw image size. Did I do the right thing? Yeah, that should be right. Let me see. Hold on. Sorry. I'm hoping to quickly get where I need to get. Okay. Okay. Let me do a print. Okay. Trace back. Okay. Let's try that. I'm trying to figure out where it's having its moment in the code. And it's not stopping. It won't stop. Make it stop. Why isn't it stopping? Okay, it stopped. I hit Control C more than once and it refused to stop. Okay. Okay. What would be hilarious? Okay, good. It threw an error. Oh, what? Really? Really? That is such a... Oh. That's interesting. That is interesting. Well, that was a silly error. Let's try this again. I don't know why the other one was working, but I know why that was failing. Or do I? I think this worked. Well, that was, if that was the error, that was a silly error. It was some code I introduced, and even then, like it was something I added for the mosaic. What do you call it? The kind of that new mosaic mode. But what I don't understand is why this one is having that issue. So let me see. Um, oh, let's try that. It was some it was something I added for the mosaic mode, and then now since it's not in mosaic mode, it uncovered a bug that I had added since I've been running it in the mosaic mode since I fixed. So it was working for non-mosaic mode, but broken for mosaic mode. I fixed it for mosaic mode, but broke non-mosaic mode. But I've been running anyway. It uncovered, yeah. So now it should hopefully work with both. Okay, that doesn't look right, but I'll figure it out some other time. Anyway, so I should be able to go to this one too now. It's very frustrating, but people get the live coding in today. All right. So getting a 6.7% rejection rate, which isn't, I mean, not bad compared to what I'm getting. Although this one on the right isn't actually too bad. And actually this, oh, I guess because it's got almost, I mean, that looks pretty bright compared to what I've gotten from that galaxy before. Just, yeah, poor Mac. Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Going from the inbuilt mosaic to normal broke the code. But it was working before, and so I fixed it for mosaic, but then I broke normal. So yeah, yeah, you were right. You called it. You called it. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately I wasn't looking at the chat. I was like so focused on what I was doing and I was like, nope. Yep, you're right. Ah. Now the one thing that isn't right is this the label. I that was wrong. Wait. Wait. Sorry. So it's width, height, and it's width and height. Okay. And then I mean, again, this was logic I added for, yeah, this was logic I added for, and that's why the logic was right in preview mode, but it wasn't right for stacking mode. But it was because the mosaic had a non-standard size. Anyway, it was working there, but let's restart this. Yeah, the problem is the last, like a couple days ago, I think it was clear here. I didn't do a live stream and I thought, well, I'll spend that time working on the code, but then I got tired and I had like fixed some of it and then I'm just like, I'm going to bed. But unfortunately, I didn't. I broke non-mosaic mode unknowingly at the time. Okay, this is working now. I added some code where even if the image is bigger, like in the case of a mosaic, it will put this like centered-ish towards the bottom of the image, but the calculation was wrong, which is why it was like over here. This is, I'm actually surprised that this is so bright. Like the previous times I've imaged the Deerlick group here, like that galaxy was not nearly that bright. I mean, there's terrible like rotation artifacts, but the galaxy core itself is like, I'm very surprised at how bright that is, but pleasantly surprised. Meanwhile, look, I mean, I know it's like over a bigger area, but M33 is not, it's pretty dim. Oh, well. One of these nights, there'll be some Seestar images. Hey, there are. It just took a while. It was a journey. No, no, I'm not gonna rebuild the disk. See if it fixes it. So, yeah. Okay. Well, so this is making progress. It's actually imaging. Yeah, so yeah, it's a dilemma. Like I don't I want to do a live stream, but I also want to improve the software, but then I have all these cloudy nights, so I have to end up with doing a little bit of live fixing of code. But yeah, I mean the weather here, I mean just like a lot of places, like sometimes we'll have a stretch of a lot of cloudy or partly cloudy weather, and then sometimes we'll have like long stretches where it's clear, but we haven't had a ton of that recently. But that's okay. So I wonder how much longer I'm going to let this go. I mean, this one, actually, this has gone longer because I had done a 90-minute two-panel mosaic, so it was only going to spend 45 minutes on each panel. So this one's already gone past because I was like fumbling around trying to fix the code. So this one I can probably stop and pick something else, which it is now 11:30 my time. And Pluto's too late. Got M33. I wonder if the Helix Nebula is visible yet, because I really wanted to image that. NGC 7293. It might be visible. Is that time right? Yeah, let me try. I'm gonna stop this one. Now the only downside is that manual button I have to start imaging doesn't it doesn't turn on the light pollution filter. It just triggers it. So let me go stop this image. This turned out nice. I mean, as far as brightness goes, I already gotten a bunch of data. I just need to process all the stuff. Live view, so okay. You can turn it on the settings tab. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to try that. We'll see how it goes. So I'm going to stop this one, and then I'm going to, because I decided I'm enjoying this go-to so much, and especially given how how restricted my skies are, I don't want to just fire off an imaging session and have it kind of try to figure it out for a while and then fail. Whereas if I do it this way, which is actually kind of the way I would do it with the app, where I wasn't sure if something would be visible, I would go to a target and then make sure that there's no obstructions in the field of view, and then I'd start recording. This allows me to do that, and I can do it from the command tab. Right, right. Well, I'm going to do that in a moment. First, I'm going to go manually go to 7293 and then go to, and then view this live. And so if it's not obstructed, then I'll turn on the light pollution filter and manually start the exposure. Just because. See, I don't know what I'd do with myself if I didn't, if I had less obstructions and not Bortle 9. I mean, things would be so easy. I could just like, yeah, it would be so much easier. Um, I am pleased with these RA and deck coordinates. I had talked to somebody about one of the other people who's contributed code about something they're working on and hooking that the RA and deck to that so you can actually see where it's pointing in the sky. Okay, that looks unobstructed to me, which is great. So we can do it. We can do this. So should I do commands? I'll try commands. With the manual start, I mean, it's basically doing what the I mean, it's basically whether you do the scheduled or you do it this way, it's basically doing the same series of commands to the Seestar. Like all that logic is on the Seestar itself. So we're just telling it to start stacking, and so it starts um it's stacking kind of not quite in memory, but or maybe it is in memory, but it's also writing out the subframes as it's going, and then at the end when it stops, it writes out the stack. Yeah, yeah, that's basically what I'm doing. I'm basically doing the equivalent of pushing the. Um. So is it here where I go? Is that what I do? Turn on the light pollution filter and just execute it? We'll see. And actually, can I get the wheel position? Does that actually two? Wheel position 2, that's not a very helpful number. Wheel position 2. I assume it's doing the right thing, so we'll see. So I'm going to go back to live, which actually, with the light pollution filter in place, it is dimmer. So that is the light pollution filter. Okay, so wheel position 2 is light pollution, and wheel position 1 is higher cut. Yeah, and it's the same at the end. Yeah, where basically you tell it to stop stacking, and wheel position 0 is darks. But yeah, you tell it to stop stacking, and then yeah, it stops and writes out the stacked fit file and JPEG. So let me go try this. It does bother me how few stars are visible on this one. Actually, I wonder if I should. I wonder if I should juice the gain too while I'm at it. I think I might, because we can change the gain. Is it on this one? Or is it not on this one? Can you not change it? Can you only do it? Can you only do it when you're triggering an exposure? Darn it. I think that's, you can only do it when triggering an exposure. Oh well. I'll just, do I do it? Do I want to do that? It doesn't let me change the gain here, does it? I mean, there's so many things we can change here, but I'll just leave the gain alone for now. And I'll just I'll just start recording once it comes back. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's. Okay, where is this? Okay. Okay, let me go ahead and trigger recording. And hopefully this will. It's probably going to do the 3-point calibration and it's going to immediately fail. No? I guess it already. This one, I guess, already had done the 3-point. It was this one that was having issues with 3-point calibration. Um, okay. That's off to a promising start. First one was dropped. um, I mean, having the drop counter is nice because, like, if you have these kind of issues in the beginning, it isn't. You don't necessarily know how many frames have been failing. Okay, it actually got one. That's good. So I'm going to move to the stats screen to get this to try to stop live streaming or live view. So then when I go back, it will bring up the correct, the stacked view instead of the preview. Yeah, it's still loading the image. It's still loading it. Like if it works correctly, you'll see a message at some point saying, like it timed out or something. But it's taking a while. Let's see, Seestar A. Do I see messages from Seestar A? No, I don't. So if I go back and look through the history, at some point, Seestar A should. So it read the image. It was still getting an image there. And it still got something there. Or maybe it already. Where did it? I'm just trying to convince myself that it actually was working. Hmm. Oh. Let me switch back to live view. And I can see part of it. It's kind of fuzzy, but I can see it. I mean, the target we're imaging, of course, it's probably going to have to go a while, but this is what we're imaging. And unlike some of the other planetary nebulas, this one's actually decent size. Like some of them are just like little tiny ones, like the yeah. So we'll see how long that. I mean, it's only been going for 2 minutes, and it's starting to show something. So I bet if is this even in stacked mode? Maybe it's not even in stacked mode. Let me look. No, this isn't even in stacked mode. That's it. I'm stopping it. It didn't. It didn't do what I was hoping it would do, which is kind of give up sending the preview, and then when I went back in, it would show me the stacked view, but it was still showing me the stacked view. I mean, the stacked view, or the preview. Okay. Yeah, okay. It should start showing up. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that looks better. I mean, that's not bad for not even 3 minutes of data. So that's promising. I mean, it's noisy, sure, but it's a good start. I mean, it's much better. And especially given that I'm imaging it down here, it's like between two buildings, not super high. It's only, I mean, it's 39 degrees above the horizon, but still the fact that it's kind of so much foreground clutter there. Uh, Thanks for joining, Dave. Have a good evening. Uh, Thanks for joining. And tomorrow I'll probably have another live stream if the weather cooperates. So until next time, have a good night. Yeah, so this is turning out nicely. I'm happy with that. This one is just kind of yeah. I feel like M33, I guess it's just low, yeah, bad skies, low surface brightness. Yeah, it's like very faint. But I should probably stop this one and maybe do something else. Yeah, I still owe you that 1 hour exposure. Was that M33 I did an hour of? I forget. Actually, I know Wiley's site, I think, gets some decent results with the moon. Uh, Sometimes it makes it even worse. It really does. So much so that I kind of give up sometimes. Sometimes I don't even bother. Um, Let me see. On my all sky camera here, uh, I had. Let me look at that. It was the other day. Oh, it did do a. Was it this night? Or was it this night? This was from last night when I was testing it out. And it was fine, but then yeah, I think was this the one where the moon started coming up? No. No, that one wasn't. I think it was the I think it was like a previous session where it was like earlier in the week and I had like all these clouds. Unfortunately, it didn't generate an animation, but yeah, like 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 look at how bright the sky was. And this was 3 days ago, so it wasn't even the moon wasn't even as full, but it was pretty bad. Like you can't really see nearly as many stars, so it was not a like I forget what I was taking an image of, but the gradients were just horrible. So a lot of times these days, if even if it's a clear night, if the moon is up a decent amount in the sky, um, when I'm trying to image, I don't even bother some nights because I'm just like, yeah, I'm not going to get enough good data that I'm just like, I'm not going to bother. Yeah. Yeah. The imaging all week. Yeah. For me, I think, yeah. Yeah. So I think that's part of the problem. I have like so much pollution. And I think we also figured, because I think Wiley's site, like there was some image he had taken of something I had taken an image of, and mine was like objectively much worse. And I think we figured it was because where he is, even though he's Bortle 9, there's some areas he's pointing where I guess between the air being drier and he's pointing out of the light dome of the city, it's not as bad. Whereas for me, I'm like in the middle, so just about every direction I point, I'm going through like half the light dome of the city. And so it's just terrible every direction. And then we have the humidity on top of it and the haze. And Houston has, especially when it's in the summer, we have like ozone issues and stuff, which produce this like, yeah, this sky haze that's just bad, and it continues into the evening. So yeah. So I just don't even bother a lot of times because it's challenging enough that yeah, I won't even bother. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, there were a few nights where that's what all I would do. I just kind of, and especially because I've been doing development, I would put the telescopes outside. I mean, that was one good thing where when I had those problems with the moon, I did put the telescope out so I could work on live view, but I wasn't really focused. Like I was imaging, but I don't think I'll ever do any. I mean, I might incidentally process those images as part of some other stack, but they probably will get rejected because they were so bad, a lot of the frames. But it at least it wasn't about data. It was about running a realistic kind of flow and then testing out live view and trying to fix bugs with it. Yeah. Yeah. I was joking about that few months ago because it was like we had so much rain for so many days that I'm like I should take up radio astronomy. Cuz yeah, that some of that goes through through rain through clouds just fine. Um yeah. It is pretty bad sometimes. But this I'm happy with this. I'm happy that this is I mean, I know it's noisy, but it's actually better than I expected, to be honest, because I knew this one wasn't like the brightest target. So it's actually better than I was expecting. I mean, when you compare, given that this is a planetary nebula, and then you look at like I have 9 times as much data on M33, and yeah, it's so dim in comparison. Yeah, 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 probably. Actually, that's an idea. I could take a photo of my telescope. But yeah, it's yeah, so that's I'm now I don't know how long I'll be able to actually image the Helix Nebula. Actually for a bit longer because it's just like I could probably do that for at least another half hour. That's good. I should be able to get some reasonable results from that. And actually, Saturn's visible, but Saturn's kind of small. And yeah, Triangulum Galaxy is higher in the sky, and yet, yeah. Oh well. Let's see what else there might be over here that I can do. Bail on the Triangulum and do something else. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that the light pollution filter does help. And I know see that's the thing where I'm kind of looking forward to the fronts coming through because that does for us it's not for me from an astronomy point of view it's not that it's drying that it's getting cooler, it's that it's drying up the air and kind of getting rid of a lot of the haze. And so I know like in the spring and over the winter when I would take images of M42, which granted is very bright, even during a full moon with the light pollution filter on, I was getting some pretty good results, but the sky was much quality was much better. Um, yeah. Well, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. Um, it's funny you mentioned that. Uh, I forget which telescope was that. Was it a ZWO one, or was it the dwarf, or I forget which one it was. But people were talking about how they were adding AI enhancement to the I mean, kind of like the software you get where it does like the AI noise reduction and stuff. But, like if they're automatically doing it before you even see the image that's coming out of the telescope. Yeah, I thought somebody was saying like, I mean, people some people already think that it's like grabbing the image from a database. Like if you're running AI on top of it, like how will people even know? I mean, that's not what it's doing, but still, it is kind of like at what point is, yeah, anyway. Yeah, pull a Samsung. Yeah, it would, yeah. It's like, wow, that is an amazing image. And yeah, it's like, how is that even optically possible for it to capture that? Yeah, the thing about the moon, that was funny where yeah, somebody would take a photo and the moon was like unusually detailed in the sky. Like if you had a photo of the moon behind you, it's like, why is the moon so detailed? It's like, oh, it's just taking a photo of the moon and swapping it out for yeah, that's I mean, I'm not surprised. If anything, I'm almost surprised that it hasn't happened more. Maybe it has and we just don't know about it yet. Um he debunked it, or he showed that it was that's what it was, that it was doing it. Yeah. It was kind of, I remember that. It was like, that is, oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, he debunked their denial. Yeah. Yeah. And then it came out fully detailed. It's like, yeah, that's, no, no, it's just they're using like a really advanced algorithm like they use on those crime shows, with the enhancing where they look at the there was what was it? Um I'm not gonna paste the link, but I thought I got a laugh from it. The what was it? Helps if I crime show enhancing uh video. No. Ah, I can't find it. Anyway, it was like a video, a supercut of all those different crime shows where they're looking at the security. Yeah, enhance. That's what it was. Enhance. Oh my god. Let me look that up because it was just hilarious. Like if you haven't seen it, you need to look at it. It was it just called enhance? Maybe my because this is my astronomy uh thing. Maybe my search thing isn't correct, but yeah, it was. Well, there was one I saw, and I don't know if it was just from that show, but or maybe it was from all of their episodes, but like it just was all these clips. And my favorite one is like they kept enhancing it, and then then they ended up like almost doing like a bullet time where they kind of took the scene in 3D and kind of rotated the scene. And it's like, I don't think that's the way security cameras work. Like, those are some pretty amazing security cameras. Um, yeah, it was that was like the most ridiculous one, but they were all ridiculous. Yeah, enhance. Oh man, what was that? Let me see if I can find that. Um, enhance. Is that the one? Oh, I think. Was this the one? Oh, it was the one. I think I just missed it. Let me try this. Yeah, this is the one where they had all these different scenes from different movies, like enhance. And then there's a reflection on the man's face. And it's just like it had all this detail. Oh, this is the one. This is the one. I'm gonna mute this, but where was this the one? Yeah, like where they actually pivot around the scene. Like, sorry, that was oh, okay. Yeah. Thanks for joining Cosmic Ray, and have a good evening. Yeah, the Great Python thing. But yeah, this part where they where they're enhancing it, and then they rotate the scene. Like, how exactly does that work? I mean, sure. I mean, I guess you could you could you know, if you had more than one camera, you could kind of infer a three-dimensional model, but I don't think most security cameras are quite to that level, especially when they only have like one point of view. Oh, okay. Sky details in Discord. Let me go look at that. That's not Discord. Um, yeah, let me sorry, I'm just looking at Discord. Um okay. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Okay. Wow. Those are wow. That's impressive. The I'm cutting out the coordinates, but this is Seiko's screen. I mean SQM, which is the sky brightness. Like it's pretty good. Claims class 2, but I don't know. That's a 21.99. Yeah, I would love to have that. I think let me see. Yeah, the only thing that would be better, yeah, because you got a low elevation, but that's I don't know. Do I have like a screenshot I took? No, let's change from this thing. What was it? Come on, close that out. Close that out. It was what was it? Yeah, Bortle. Yeah. But I have yours is almost 22 22nd magnitude. Like where was mine? Um Let me see if I can find it real quick. If not, I'll because I used, I mean, granted, it isn't the most scientifically accurate, but I did use an app to try to figure out my sky brightness. Yeah, here it is. Yeah. And I think I've gotten worse than this, but that particular night I got a 16.99. So, yeah. Which, what is Bortle? What? So mine is 16.99. Yeah. So Bortle 89 is under 18 and mine is under 17. So, yeah, there you go. Let me see. Did I get any other readings? Oh, I actually did get one. I did get a 17.13. So yeah, pretty bad. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, all I did was I just used an app, which isn't going to be like, you know, super, like it's not a calibrated value, but it kind of, I mean, it tracks what the sky brightness maps claim for my location, and kind of just observationally what I see, which is, yeah, like the sky is brilliantly lit. Yeah, no joke. Many stars forming constellations are invisible. Aside from the Pleiades, no Messier object is visible to the naked eye. Yeah, yeah. It's I mean, you got to take it with a grain of salt, but you like look at this sky view. I mean, you can see a few. I mean, it's not like a super light, night vision camera, this Raspberry Pi camera, but there aren't a whole lot of stars you see, and like, and I think that light is might be the moon already. Where's the moon right now? Yeah, yeah, the moon's, yeah, that's the moon. Like this, you can you can kind of you can see kind of the way this is lit somewhat. Like the moon is starting to rise over here. Or I shouldn't say rise. It has risen. It just is coming behind the building. So, like, how much longer will it be? Um, yeah, within an hour, it's going to be like right here, completely. Like, yeah, 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 yeah. 17. Yeah, I mean, this is why. I mean, it's funny because like people have questioned this sky camera because it's like, why is your exposure so messed up where it's like the sky is almost blue? It's like it's not messed up. The sky is pretty bad, and for me to have any stars visible in this sky camera, I have to like I manually tweak the exposure to be a little longer. Otherwise, you wouldn't, like, sure, the sky would be darker, but you'd see like no stars in it. At least with at this level, you can see some stars. But yeah, you can see over here how much brighter it is because yeah, that's where the moon's kind of, it's probably right around here right now above the building, or maybe it's not quite above a building, but it's going to be above a building shortly, and then this will really be lit up. Yeah, but yeah, yeah. My sky, your skies are like 5 magnitudes darker. Or, I mean, the SQM is like 5 magnitudes darker than mine. um, so yeah, it does make things a bit challenging. Honestly, at this point, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm, since the moon's about to like really mess things up. I don't know if I'm not gonna if I'm gonna keep going at this point. I mean, I'm already having such. I mean, let me see if tomorrow's going to be okay. Yeah, I mean, tomorrow looks solid. So, tomorrow evening. So, yeah, I'm tempted to kind of call it an evening tonight. I know it's relatively early and it's a Friday night, but I've been going 3.5 hours, and I could take a break. Oh, this is turning out nicely. I'm very pleased with this. I know it's very grainy, but I think with like the AI noise reduction, that'll be nice. Like that'll clean up nicely. I might keep this going even after the stream a bit. This one, I've got over an hour of data on that, and that's just challenged. I'm going to stop this one. SQM 17.01. Wow. That's like as bad as mine. Yeah, because mine was at the zenith. I pointed mine straight up. Where are you again, Dark Shades? Yeah, so yeah, but yeah, I'm oh right. Yeah, Dallas, another Metroplex resident. Yeah, so same problems. Yeah, I think I'm gonna call it a night tonight. Thanks for joining. If you haven't liked the video before you go, like the video, and I will probably have another one of these tomorrow evening. And the good thing is I might potentially go longer tomorrow night since the moon won't be rising until a little later tomorrow. So um yeah. So I think I'll leave it at that, and thanks for joining, and hope to see you again soon. Clear skies. Thanks.